Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Joanne Taylor-Stagg, multi-award-winning hotelier and general manager of the Athenaeum in London. Coming up on today's show, Joanne highlights an area for career development.
They won't let me make beds because I don't do it well enough.
Phil shows us that inspiration comes from anywhere.
One of my favourite pieces of philosophy comes from, I can't believe I'm going to say this in public, comes from Albus Dumbledore in Harry Potter.
And Joanne reels off one of the coolest lines we've ever heard on the show.
E.T. was edited in this hotel. Is that not the coolest thing to be able to tell your mates?
All that and so much more as we chat through Joanne's story and journey to date. Joanne is absolutely one of the good guys, and some of the work she's doing away from her day-to-day job is absolutely wonderful. And my word, we solve some problems in our chat. A huge thank you to Joanne for giving us so much time. Don't forget, we launch a brand new episode each week telling the amazing and always amusing stories from hospitality. So please remember to like, subscribe and review on whatever platform you're listening. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. And I have been looking forward to this chat for quite some time now, as I welcome one of the most respected hoteliers in the business, and a multi-award winner to boot, the most recent of which saw her take the Independent Hotelier of the Year award at the recent Independent Hotel Show. When she's not out there winning awards, she's also the general manager of the Athenaeum Hotel in London. So I am, of course, talking about the wonderful Joanne Taylor-Stagg. A massive welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Phil, and thank you for that quite impressive introduction. I hope I live up to the intro.
Yeah, I remember actually having somebody who's a kind of neighbour of you, actually, David Cowdery from the Cavalry and Guards Club.
Yes,
just
a couple
down the
of
road.
doors down, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my first ever guests, and I did a big intro and asked him, was the intro big enough? Was that intro big enough for you?
It was pretty impressive intro. It was more than big enough for me, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I think, of course, there's a whole story behind how someone gets into a position to, when you're kind of getting yourself into a position that people want to offer you accolades and awards. So we'll get onto that in a sec. But first of all, how are you?
I'm absolutely awesome. How are you?
Excellent. Yes, very, very good indeed. It's just nice to be doing stuff again.
It is totally lovely to be doing stuff again. This week we hosted with Pride of Britain Hotels a Meet Journalists evening.
Right.
And every single person in the room, bar none, said, "Oh, it's so lovely to see people again. Isn't it lovely to be out?" And it completely is.
Oh God, we just did a rooms event yesterday. First event I've actually put on, but just the energy in the room was amazing. It was like people were going, "Yes, I am so ready for this."
Yeah, you're right, and I think as hoteliers, we are people, yeah. So being deprived of, the company of others has just been awful.
Yeah, it's not right, is it?
It's not right. The world is not right when you cannot see people.
Yeah, and see people face to face, not through a screen.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things I love most about my day is that when I get in the morning, I normally get a hug from either of our doormen, Jim or John. And when that didn't happen, I can't tell you I felt very deprived for a very long time. Yeah.
The hug bank has been it needs topping up.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. That's that's all great. And I'll just talk briefly about business. Are things moving in the right direction?
Business is getting, I guess everything comes with a caveat these days, but London is definitely getting busier with every single passing week. You can see the numbers on a massive upward trajectory. The challenge being that we are going through the same issues that our colleagues in the provinces and the countryside and the coast went through earlier, in that demand is now outstripping our capacity to service the demand. And that is a challenge I've never had in my career before. And I don't know what's worse, if I'm perfectly honest, not having business or not being able to service it in the volume and the way you want. So we made
Yeah.
the conscious decision that actually looking after our guests or looking after our team was the most important balance to find. And and turning away business because you can't, you don't want to kill your team and you want to make sure you do it properly is yeah, it hurts. I've got to be
Yeah.
honest, it hurts.
I can
um
only imagine.
yeah.
Yeah, and especially I think you nailed it there with the point. I mean, you could, in principle, just be completely blind to the problem and just, full capacity, go for it, go, and then absolutely just burn your team out, completely lose them then from the process, and then run the risk of losing people who once cared about what you were doing. And it's just that it could then very quickly get into a downward cycle. I could see. So I've heard it from lots of different places, which is really great. Is that there is this respect for the human, and the fact that, yes, we want to give the guests a great experience, but we also have to give our team a great experience when they come into work.
Yeah, completely. It goes back to we are people, yeah.
Yeah.
And as cheesy and as it sounds, we are only as good as our team, and we
Yeah.
have to protect them, yeah, almost at all costs at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's problem number one solved. Look after your team. Let's park that and move on. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, before you got yourself into the position that you are, there's obviously a long story behind. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. That sounds terrible. There's a story behind where you got how you got here. So yeah, take us all the way back to the beginning of your career. How did you get into this wonderful industry?
So I came across hospitality more by chance than design.
Okay.
I started studying law. I was a fairly focused kid and decided law was what I wanted to do and was really absolutely adamant. So went off to uni, and like everybody else, I got a waitressing job to pay for my university drinking habits.
Yeah. Yes, we've all been there. Although I wasn't a waitress, but yes, I definitely had a job to help my habits.
Exactly, everybody did it, yeah.
Yeah.
But then kind of halfway through my second year, it kind of dawned on me that I was speeding to get to the restaurant and dawdling to go to class, and thought,
Right.
hang on, something wrong with this picture here. So, and in South Africa, you pay quite a heavy price for a university education. So my parents were not wealthy. They had stumped up a good chunk of their life savings to send me off, and I was feeling very conflicted. So I went to go and see my grandmother, who I was very close to, and kind of gave her my conundrum. And she said to me, "Joanne, you were born to be in hotels." And she told me the story about how when I was 3 years old, all of my friends wanted to go to the Wimpey bar. We didn't have McDonald's back in the day, but wanted to go to the Wimpey bar.
God, you're that ages you, I'm afraid.
I know. I'm owning it.
Yeah.
um,
I remember it as well. Don't worry, I remember
oh, good.
Wimpy.
Yeah, imagine a life before McDonald's. But yeah, there was.
Yeah.
There was also a life before Google and Amazon. But hey, who knew?
I know. Can you imagine that? Isn't McDonald's like it's such an ancient company, but they absolutely didn't really do much for a long time, and then just went nuts.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and that was on the back of that franchise model, wasn't it?
Yeah, no,
I've seen that movie, The Founder.
No, they
Other
did it
movies
very
are
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I
No.
took you off your story.
No worries. So all of my 3-year-old friends wanted to go to the Wimpy bar. This precocious little brat, because I must have been a precocious little brat, wanted to go to the 5-star hotel for afternoon tea.
Very good.
So I was so small and that I couldn't actually say the name of the hotel. So it was the Elangeni Hotel in Durban.
Okay.
But I couldn't pronounce it. So I used to say, "Granny, can we go to the Gainey?" And she would take me for a cup of tea in a china cup, probably put my little finger up, I guess. And she said to me, "You were born to be in hotels." And so I plucked up the courage, spoke to my parents, who were actually really supportive, considering I was wasting a whole chunk of money and designs that I was going to keep them in this grand plush lifestyle that they thought a lawyer would keep them in were rapidly disappearing. But yeah, I changed to hotels, and I honestly have not looked back one single day. I have loved loved most minutes. There's been a few I haven't loved, but
Yeah.
generally I have loved every single opportunity that has come my way as a result.
Yeah. Do you know what I love about that is the one, your parents are obviously awesome, because to have that kind of support is exactly what you need when you're just starting out, right? Because your brain at that age is still figuring out your path. Some of us are still trying to figure out our path, by the way. You need the right people around you to be able to make decisions that feel right to you, that come from the heart. But if you had somebody, that's your sliding doors moment right there. If you had somebody that was a lot more forceful in the way that they guided you into something, then, all of a sudden you and I are not having a chat right now.
Yeah, if my gran had said to me, "Do you know how much money they spent?" No ways, I would never
Yeah.
even have broached the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah.
But is that something? I'm not going to dwell on this, but I'm intrigued actually, because I don't know anything about the South African schooling system. But in terms of, were you guided into law because you were academically strong, and there
Um,
wasn't like hotels was not put on your plate, or how did that work?
no, I was guided into law because my mother was a journalist and her beat was the Supreme Court. So in my school holidays, I am such a geek as I say this, but anyway, in my school holidays, I would go down to the law courts with her and listen to cases. So I
Right.
listened to parts of Winnie Mandela's trial.
My word.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just quite fascinated by the whole process. And so that's why I wanted to do law.
Right. Right. So it was something that came from you. It wasn't something where you sat with a careers advisor and said, you have to do this because your grades are good.
No, but I also have to say that hospitality and hotels were not something that was pushed either. Pretty much the same as here.
Yeah.
Everyone that had semi decent grades, because my grades weren't brilliant, semi decent grades was encouraged down a more academic and traditional path. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I have this discussion with so many people. And the frightening thing for me is that that's not really changed, because when I was at school, I excelled at one subject other than sport, which at that point, nobody was saying go into a career in sport because, that's going to work out well for you. It was physics. It was just one of those subjects I had a natural talent for, and I hated it. I'm sorry to all the people that work hard to get a talent in something, but of course people say, well, you have to go and explore this at university, and I could not have thought of anything worse. And I think that really then sent me into a bit of a whirl in my head around, okay, what do I do? I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. And if somebody had then said to me, you've got such a dynamic personality, Phil, you should go into hotels. And then I probably would have snapped their hand off, but that wasn't a career option that was presented to me.
And that I think that is true the world over, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And we need to do something about that, but we'll come on to that later. Yes. Anyway, so carry on. I sound a bit like Graham Norton there. Carry on with your story. I'm not gonna push you off the red chair. Don't worry.
No, that's fine. So I joined the Carlton Hotel, which was a 663 bedroom 5-star hotel in the center of Johannesburg on what was their kind of apprenticeship, kind of graduate program. They took 5 management trainees and 5 chefs each year, and we did a 3-year program where from management perspective we covered every single department, and then for 6 weeks a year we would go off to hotel school. At that stage in South Africa you couldn't do hotels at university, you could only go through a hotel school model, and we would do 6 weeks of intensive studying and then exams, and then go back and apply the knowledge, or at least that was the theory.
Yeah.
And I did that for 3 years, and then I joined another hotel in Johannesburg in conference and banqueting, because at that stage that was my passion. I had also been quite influenced in that the Carlton was it did all the big events. So we were headquarters for the ANC during the election build-up. We did,
Right.
um, yeah, we did so many amazing events, and I think that that's why I fell in love with conference and banqueting at first. Joined a different hotel to be able to pursue that. And then the training manager from the Carlton phoned me a year down the line and said, I've bought this, well, the term didn't really exist, but a restaurant with rooms, which is pretty much what it was, a small hotel. And in the UK, would you like to come and I'll pay for your airfare? It was like superb Wednesday night.
Sold.
Yeah, that was pretty much as much as I needed. And the plan was I would come over for a year. I would earn some pounds because pounds got you a lot further than rands do. I would backpack around Europe for a year and I would go home having had this amazing experience.
Sounds like a great plan.
It was a great plan. Just didn't quite work out that way.
I was going to say, it does feel like there's a but.
So I did the first year, and then I think I accepted that I'm not really a backpack kind of a girl. I'm much more comfortable.
We're going back to the afternoon tea scenario.
Exactly. My room needed to be en suite, and if it was going to be en suite, I needed a few more pounds to be able to to travel the way I wanted to. So I decided I would do another year or two, but I needed to get into a bigger environment than just the restaurant with rooms. So I applied to Marriott, and I was accepted as the conference and banqueting manager at the Swindon Marriott. And I then started on a 13-year career with Marriott, up and down the country, doing all sorts of roles. And then life can be funny because my first proper GM's job, because I kind of held the fort somewhere else for a little while, but my first proper GM's job was back at the Swindon Marriott. So it's the first time I've started a job and got a welcome card signed by the entire team.
My God, yeah.
Well,
I remember you when you were but a whippersnapper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I was there for 4 years, but during my time, well, actually it was probably before, they announced that London was getting the Olympics, and like you, sport is features quite heavily in my life, although I have to say I'm probably better at watching than playing, but anyway.
As it transpires, so was I.
Okay, well, we can share
I grew up
that.
on a small island and thought I was David Beckham, and then went to his university and I was
not
a couple of divisions below. Let's put it that way. But there we are.
Yeah, so same sort of thing. Much better at watching than playing. But I also was absolutely determined to be in London for the Olympics. I figured it was once in a career opportunity, and pretty much come hell or high water, I was going to be there.
Yeah.
And it was apparent that there was going to be no movement in London GM roles with Marriott in the time frame I wanted. And so I took this massive leap of faith, and it really did feel like that, to leave what was a very comfortable environment, because I knew all the rules and I knew all the players, and I was getting along quite nicely. But I leapt into the abyss, and I took on GM at Crowne Plaza Docklands. And I have to be honest, one of the major attractions of Crowne Plaza Docklands in the beginning was it was within 15 minutes of 3 Olympic venues.
Yeah.
and so I got to experience the Olympics, and it was everything I hoped it would be. It was absolutely insane and awesome. I've never worked as well, maybe now a little bit more. But yeah, we all worked so hard, but we had the most fun.
It was such a special thing.
Totally.
I have to admit, I had a love-hate relationship with that when London was awarded it, because I was living in London at the time, and I just kept on thinking to myself, God, the transport network's not busy enough, so we're just going to add in another 100,000 people or whoever are going to come to watch the event. Mr. Negative Nancy here. But I was working at the time for Restaurant Associates, a contract catering company, and I was in a contract with Accenture, who were one of the bid sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in an Accenture building the day they announced that London had got the Olympics. And honestly, it was like the building had just won the World Cup. The place went absolutely. We had 1,000 people gathered around 4 or 5 televisions that we'd brought in specifically for this, and it was literally we just scored the winning goal in the World Cup, and that really, really lifted me. And then, of course, the next day we, of course, went into 7-7, which was not great, but we don't need to go into that.
No.
But I just remembered going all the way through the Olympics, just thinking, this is just a wonderful, wonderful thing. Like that Super Saturday where Britain just won so many gold medals. I think it's one of those, certainly for a Brit, maybe not for you, I don't know, but although this is your country now, really, for all intents and purposes, you've been here probably longer than you were in South Africa.
Yeah, much longer. I came over in 95. So I often say I'm British in all things but accent. And it used to be sport, but it then became in accent and rugby and cricket. But I don't have enough time to watch cricket so much at the moment. So now it's in all things but accent and rugby. Rugby's never changing.
Yeah, well, rugby continues to do well as well.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I just, it's one of those moments where I think wherever you were in the world, you kind of, it's one of those, I remember where I was when it happened type events. And I was in a little pub in the middle of Leicestershire randomly, and there was people coming up I'd never been anywhere near this pub in my life, and everybody was just in such good spirits and so together. And I just thought this is actually one of the best things that's ever happened to this country.
You see, I remember it not just for that Super Saturday, but I remember, you had to walk past the hotel to get to the Excel Centre. So we had, I can't remember how many people walked past the front door. So, I mean, we didn't stop literally from 6 o'clock in the morning until midnight. It was just mental.
Yeah.
And I remember running around. We had pretty much the whole team. We left one person on switchboard, one person on reception, one person in finance, and everybody else was in food and beverage serving. And you were running around, and every single time somebody got a medal or finished a race well or whatever, everything would stop. Like the whole restaurant, the bar, the whole hotel would in unison, guests, team, everybody, yeah. And then everyone would carry on doing whatever they were doing, and there would be this moment of quiet just before the end of a race or whatever it was, as everybody sat with that couple of seconds of anticipation, erupted into whatever, and then carried on doing whatever. And we did that for days on end. It was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely see the attraction, and to take that risk, I suppose, in inverted commas, that you were probably had in your mind, that as you said, it was a leap of faith. To what a great leap of faith in the end.
Oh, completely, and and the hotel just absolutely rose to the challenge. We won Hotel of the Year for BDL, as it was then that year. Which was
that the first award you won then?
Yes, I think it was. And that was almost a dead cert, wasn't it? Come on, if you're not going to win bloody Hotel of the Year, when you've got 3 Olympic venues on your doorstep, then
that's fair enough.
Yeah, but
I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one.
But what was really cool was we won it again the next year, and that gave me greater pleasure, I think, because we arguably had to work a little bit harder for that one. We didn't have the cards all stacked in our deck.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing when you've got a hotel / venue that is just getting absolutely battered from start to finish in the day because of the quantity of people that are coming in and out. Your team gets so tuned in with that, don't they? And then it becomes habitual.
Yes.
And it's just part of their psyche.
Yeah.
But if you take that away, it's and COVID has taught us that probably more than ever, that habits are quickly formed, actually, and it's the age-old adage, isn't it? That when people are not busy, they can find lots of things not to do.
Yes, exactly. To keep them busy doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
So yeah, so what happened next?
well, we were doing quite well, so I was asked to take on kind of a cluster GM's role, looking after the three Crown Plazas that at that stage had become redefined BDL had in their portfolio at that stage, which was Crown Plaza Marlow and Reading, but I still had the full responsibility for Docklands, and then RBH took on a huge big management contract, and we landed up with a number of additional hotels. And so I was asked to apply for a divisional director's role, so looking after all of the Crown Plazas and then asset managing another hotel. So I had sort of 10 hotels. And that was a real change for me because suddenly I was no longer a general manager. And I had a whole lot of GMs reporting into me, and I hated it.
Really? Right.
Absolutely hated it. I just felt so disconnected from everything I had loved about hotels.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a team because each of the GMs were the head of their team, rightly so. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all got together and we all had a great time and what have you, but they were a group of people. They were not a team. Yeah, and I felt like I was a report writer, and I just didn't feel like a hotelier.
Right.
And I decided, actually, this is not for me. So I looked for an opportunity to get back into a hotel and was approached for the Trafalgar St. James as it is now. Then it was a 4-star Hilton that was going to be repositioned. And one of the things that kind of sold it for me is when the brief was, make me a cool hotel. Okay, that sounds like
Nice.
fun. Let's do
That's
that.
That's a very open brief, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, the brief did get a lot more specific as it went on.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. As the quotes started coming in. Yeah,
But
are you sure we need a cinema room on the top floor and under the stars?
well,
Yeah.
we kind of did that. We created the rooftop bar with a retractable roof
yeah.
and what have you. And it is still, yeah. I mean, I'm always going to be biased, but it is an absolutely cool bar. So that was an absolute ton of fun. And then RBH contacted me again and said they had an opportunity to pretty much do the same thing as Trafalgar St. James. They had a hotel that they had just taken on the management of that needed a lot of money spending and repositioning, and would I take it on up in Manchester? And I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that again. That sounds like fun. So we went through all of the process and what have you. And I accepted the job. And then the owner asked to see me and said he was seriously thinking about selling it. And I was like,
Oh,
hmm, um, it's not kind of what I signed up for. And
yeah.
I guess for me, it's really important who I work for, and not knowing who that would be, and also being quite pragmatic about it. We were going to move up to Manchester, which meant we were renting something. And as a GM, you're going to be a fairly chunky number on their payroll spreadsheet, and you're
Yeah.
also, I would be going into whoever bought it would be probably their biggest asset, and you want one of your own people in your biggest asset. And I thought, oh, you're going to be super vulnerable.
Precarious.
Yeah, this doesn't feel right. So I decided to graciously decline and say sorry, but no, which I did. And then and everybody gave me the advice about take some time, think about what it is that you want to do, the right thing will come.
Yeah.
And
I
and
think I can see where this is going.
and that advice is very, very good advice. However, be mindful that you've got a mortgage to pay and the money's not coming in.
Yeah.
It's not always as easy to follow that advice. And so I got approached for the Capital Hotel in Knightsbridge, and it just had new owners, and and again I was probably looking for a dream and sold a bit of a dream that didn't quite turn out to be the reality that I was sold. So
Well, it happens,
it,
doesn't it?
it absolutely does happen. But I also believe in fate, because
Yeah.
I think in my first or second week at the capital, I got a call from a headhunter about would I be interested in Athenaeum. And
Oh, those pesky headhunters.
and I said, look, thanks very much, but I've only been in my new role 2 weeks. Absolutely not interested, but thank you. And about 6 months down the line, they called back. And 6 months down the line, I'd kind of realized this wasn't going to be the genius move I thought it was going to be.
Right. Yeah.
And said, well, let's have a cup of coffee. And I honestly believe that it was just fate playing its hand. And I was meant to be at the Athenaeum. The timing just wasn't right. So
Yeah.
I scroll forward a bit, and I landed up at the Athenaeum a few months later, and 2.5 ish.
The rest is history.
Exactly.
Although there's a lot more yet, and we'll come on to that. But what I really love about that phase of your journey is that kind of that transition from a single property into multi-property, and you identifying that that's not me. And actually, the person who always kind of didn't really teach me this directly, but I saw him deliver a speech on this very subject is the wonderful Harry Murray.
Yes.
And he was one of these people that identified very quickly that he just wanted to be a general manager. He had no desire to, become a multi-conglomerate CEO or whatever, because he was a hotelier. He wants to be on the ground. He wants to feel connected to the property and to the guests and to the team and all of these things. That actually, when you find that space and you feel that you're comfortable or it's getting the best out of you, then yeah, I mean, don't keep shooting for the stars when you've already landed on the moon.
Exactly that. Yeah, and if you find
I
a
just
job
made that
you
up,
love,
by the way. That saying.
I like it. Keep it.
Yeah, I think I need to go further afield than the moon in that saying. Let's go to Mars, perhaps.
Although it's very topical, just to especially
indeed, absolutely, yeah. And then in 50 years' time, somebody can say Jupiter or whatever, as Elon Musk is
pushing.
Although he's probably not alive in 50 years, but anyway.
I don't know. He might have been cryogenically frozen and brought back by then. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be here forever. You heard it here first. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's true. If you find a job you love, you get an extra 5 days in your week. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. And do you know what as well? That totally comes across in. We haven't spoken that often over the course of our respective careers. It's only really in the last sort of few months that we've had a few more natters, but you sound happy, and comfortable. And actually then, that leads on to when you're in that position of internal zen, that's when you do your best work. You're not having to wake up every morning and go, oh God, I've got to get on that train to get to there to do that area meeting with those people, and I just want to go back to bed. And when you find that, it's very special, a very special thing.
Yeah, there's a very depressing stat that says more people commit suicide on a Sunday night or a Monday morning than any other time.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and it's exactly that, I think. Yeah. And so finding something that actually makes Monday morning, I mean, clearly hotel's not the best analogy, but anyway,
yeah.
That makes Monday morning fun is absolutely critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have, how long have you been at the Athenaeum now?
Since February 19. So yeah,
okay. Yeah. What a funny period you've had there.
Oh yes, sporting analogy, game of two halves. Yeah.
Yes, for sure, absolutely. But I'll try to take positives out of negative situations. But we're all being taught a whole load of new skills, aren't we, through this period?
Actually, I know this sounds really bizarre, but actually, we have had some incredible things happen because of COVID, and we took some different decisions to other people, partly because we, as well as the hotel, we also have some residences attached to the building, and we have some long-term guests who live with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I remember as as the madness started to begin, and all of these these questions about before we even got into lockdown, in the kind of weeks before, about what do you do about your team, and do you stay open, do you stay closed, nobody's coming in, the borders are shutting, etc., etc. What do we do? What do we do? And I'm superbly lucky to have a management company and ownership that are not in it just for the cash. They want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
We often talk about a three-legged stool, your guests, your team, and the finances. And neither one of those legs should be longer or shorter than the other in a perfect world. And so we didn't just talk about the money. We spoke about, what do we do about the team, and what do we do about our residents? And so we decided to stay open because we wanted to look after those residents. And that gave us a multitude of opportunities that, we wouldn't have had otherwise. When we went into lockdown, we had two very small teams, literally 12 people in the building, 1 week on, 1 week off. We created bubbles before we knew what bubbles were. And everybody did everything. We got to the stage where we didn't have departments. We just had a hotel team. And so many people learned so much. And I remember at the end of first lockdown, I asked all of the people that had been working during lockdown, because I wanted them to think about what they had gained from the experience, because let's face it, some of their friends in that first lockdown was a really nice summer. Some of their friends had amazing suntans and had been doing not a lot.
Do I really need to come back to work right now?
And the ones that had been working, I wanted them to feel like actually they'd had an opportunity. And so I asked them to tell me what it was that they had learned or gained from the experience. And Phil, it was amazing. They came back and honestly, the overriding things were, I know more than I ever thought I did. I should have more confidence in myself than I ever do, because actually I'm more capable than I ever thought I was. And actually, we're no longer a team, we're a family. And that we wouldn't have had that if it wasn't for COVID. We enhanced our guest service immeasurably. We really thought about what mattered. And as a result, our guest feedback scores have absolutely improved exponentially. And we always tried our best to look after the team. Don't get me wrong, we're not perfect and we mess up like everybody else. But it really came to the fore. We spent so much time training people and doing Zooms, partly because people needed to see one another, and the only way we could do that was over Zoom, but partly to give them training. And we had everything from the chefs showing team members how to make dip chocolate strawberries in time for Mother's Day, to how to load the dishwasher with your uniform, the washing machine with your uniform, or how to work the dishwasher, which I probably needed a bit more training on early days than I had. Should we just say flooding and foam party and leave it there? But the team really gained from that, and a confidence and trust that we would never have had. And then the other really amazing opportunities, we got to look after some of the people that were going through the toughest of times, because we took in key workers. And the two stories that I love to tell are about a policeman and his nurse girlfriend that came and stayed with us one night a week, every week. And he said to me, Joanne, I cannot tell you how much this means to us, because for 24 hours every single week, we stop the madness and we get to reconnect and spend some time together and basically repower ourselves to go out into the madness. And and that was pretty cool. But the coolest story of all was, we had a consultant who, clearly COVID wasn't his speciality, but it became something he had to deal with. And he was super worried about his family. So he had moved into an on-call room in the hospital, and his wife and 2 girls were home. And I can't remember how long it was, but it was a good, I don't know, 6-8 weeks or so. And he found us, and he stayed with us, and he he almost interrogated us. Honestly, he was like, "How do you clean this?" And we pretty much pulled off the shelf our norovirus training,
Right.
and we kind of figured, well, it's a virus. We don't really know. Yeah, we're kind of making it up as we go along here to the best of our ability, but we know norovirus is highly contagious. Okay, the repercussions are not quite as severe, but if we can handle it and mitigate the spread in the same way, then we should be okay. And
Yeah.
actually, we were more than okay. We managed to keep the hotel absolutely safe as a button until well into second lockdown, before we had our first COVID case,
Right.
that's hotel related. But
Yep.
he checked us out. He asked a million questions, and because he felt safe and comfortable with us, the next week he stayed again, but his family came, and that was the first time he'd seen his family in weeks and weeks.
That's very
and
cool.
weeks. And that was just, it's those moments that actually you realize we really do have the coolest job in the world, because we made a memory that family will cherish forever.
Yeah. And do you know that's warmed my heart. As the thing I love about that is that's hospitality right there. And I'm going to come back to Harry Murray again. Sorry, Harry. We've already done a podcast, but he talked about the fact that this is the industry of dreams, and actually sometimes the dreams can be the smallest little thing that makes such a massive impact on somebody's life, and ultimately you have just been the facilitators of bringing a family back together again. In a time of madness. That's phenomenally special.
Yeah, honestly, a privilege. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, as you say, then you're waking up. If that's what we're doing today, then God, I'm in.
Yeah.
That's just really lovely. And then how can you? I was about to go political. Then I stopped myself. I was about to say something about how can you ever class this industry as low skilled? But
well, yes, you can't. Is quite simply my answer. It's not.
Yeah. They could do with some hospitality training. Actually, the government, the ability to make people feel special is the greatest skill on earth.
Yes, and I think I'm taking it off of politics, but I don't think anybody truly appreciates what an absolutely skilled role housekeeping do.
Yeah.
I'm not.
They do now.
But they always have. They won't let me make beds because I don't do it well enough. They absolutely have so many skills that I really should be valued more.
Yeah,
without getting political.
we appreciate your help, Joanne, but is there something else you need to be doing right now?
Yeah, I'm allowed to strip beds and I'm allowed on the dishwasher now. But that's about all they'll let me do.
That's actually the same principle with me in gardening. I am fine when it's about destruction. I am not so fine when it's about nurturing and making things live.
Yeah.
But that's another story. No, that's really cool. And as you say, you have to. It can be very, very easy to just focus on the negatives in such a really strenuous time. But you don't have to look very hard to find these little pockets and moments of inspiration that really just give you the lift. And especially when you're in a role where you are used to doing, you're used to being with people. And no, that's a phenomenally special thing.
Yep.
I take my hat off to you. Yeah, so I suppose now it's kind of head down, focus on just continual improvement. Obviously, I mentioned at the top of the show that you're multi-award winning. How do these come around? Is it? I get you're quite a humble person. I don't feel like you're out there looking for these. They just have a habit of coming to you.
I think, if I'm perfectly honest, I just think I was lucky enough to be in the right hotel at the right time. And
right.
yeah, and
that's quite a humble answer. So You just backed up my point.
And I am surrounded by the most incredible team who, who allow me to do what I do. They make me look good. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always believed that, as you've just said there, that moment where everything just comes together, you're in the right place, surrounded by the right people, and sparks fly. Amazing things happen, and you don't even need to kind of think about it too hard or plan it too much, because you're just surrounded people who give a monkeys about what they do.
Yes, and it becomes contagious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're having a good time, and I do believe success breeds success. And and I remember Jonathan Raggett once saying to me, talent goes where talent wants. And really talented people look for places that they are going to be appreciated, be able to shine, and to succeed. And and then that becomes a self-fulfilling thing, because
Mm,
you have more talented people doing what they love, achieving more, and then
yeah.
more talented people join them, and and it does become a virtuous circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I quoted Lewis Hamilton to bring it back to sport.
Hmm.
Whether you love him or hate him doesn't seem to be anywhere in the middle for that, weirdly. But anyway, his saying of "We rise together," I just
Yes,
absolutely love.
yes, and
Um,
yes, absolutely, yes, and every single person on the team plays an equally important role. Yeah, every single person is valuable, and what they deliver contributes to the whole.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There's no one. Well, it's coming back to your three-legged stool, except this stool's probably a little bit bigger, a few more legs on it. But when you, if everybody, as you say, then you're kind of looking at it from a family perspective as opposed to a team perspective. Then if somebody's struggling, then the family get behind the person who's struggling and lift them back up again, and then that person feels more motivated because they've just been supported and helped, and all of a sudden it's just like this wonderful little thing that just keeps moving forward.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not rocket
totally.
science, is it?
No, it's not. It's absolutely not. It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah.
It almost goes back to the Marriott principles, and maybe it's because I spent so much time there, was grounded in this philosophy of look after your people, and they'll look after the guests, and guests will look after the money.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think if money is the primary focus of that, then there's something misaligned. I am fully aware as a business owner that money is an important part of the jigsaw, but it's not in isolation. It can't be achieved without the positive effects of all these other things.
I think it also depends on what your owners, and that's why it's really important to me who I work for,
Yeah,
what your owners' ambitions are. And are they a short term flip? Are they looking to buy, either invest or strip? Because there are definitely two ways. um,
yeah,
and sell the hotel again quickly for a profit. And if that's what they're after, then you know what you're getting. Yeah, and then money becomes primary focus number one.
yeah,
But if you're lucky enough to work for owners that are in it for the long run, that see it as a, I don't know, a legacy asset, if you like,
mm,
then they don't take short term decisions. They will think about, well, actually, we'll take one for the team now, because the growth long term will deliver. And that long term view is really, I think, is that what enables success.
yeah. It's sort of underpinned by stability, then, isn't it, as well? Because there's not this desire or need to excuse me to flip and go.
No.
And that gives everybody a lot more clarity of vision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just doing the right thing. And like I said, please don't get me wrong. We get it wrong with the best of them, but we always start with a good intention, even if
Yeah,
sometimes the execution goes awry. The intention is always to do the right thing for the long term.
yeah. And how can you lambast a good intention? In the end, it's a good positive part of leadership, that, isn't it? Is ensuring that people are not getting shot down for having good intentions, even if they got something wrong.
Indeed. Indeed, it is absolutely critical. We often talk in the team about, I'm quite comfortable with people making mistakes. In fact, I encourage people, not purposefully to make mistakes,
No.
but to try things they haven't done before. There's a fabulous story about a young guy who interviewed the founder of IBM, TJ Watson, and said to him, I want to become as successful as you. What do I need to do? And he said, if you want to become more successful, the first thing you need to do is double your failure rate. And I really believe that. I believe if you, the wonderful thing about being hoteliers is we're not brain surgeons. We're not
Yeah.
pilots. If we get it wrong, it's either going to be a lot of groveling. We might look like a muppet, and it might cost us a bit of money. But actually, with a couple of clear exceptions, allergens and legionnaires and what
Yeah.
have you, actually we can have a go. And I think that's one of the amazing things about our industry is, we talked in the beginning about so many people, find a job in hospitality to pay for university drinking or whatever.
Mm.
And a lot of us people don't stay. They do their degree and whatever else and go and do whatever else it is. But in that time, we've given them so many skills, and not just hospitality skills, but life skills.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about positive things, I wish that message would come through so much more.
Oh, I could not agree more. You can't learn this stuff in a classroom. You got to get out there into the world and learn it for yourself. And one of the biggest things that I tell anyone that wants to listen is that get out and travel, and use hospitality as your means to travel if you so wish. In terms of drop in and out of jobs when you're young. That's exactly what I did for a short period of my life, 6 months. But you're coming into a new team every time, so you have to learn your ability to adapt to come into that environment. You're dealing with a different product and a different kind of approach to service every single time, so you've got to adapt to that and all of these sorts of things. And all they keep teaching you is how to adapt to an ever-changing set of circumstances. And that right there is life.
And how to relate to people.
Yeah.
Whether they're your teammates, whether they're your guests, whether whomever, you learn how to live with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Of all shapes and sizes, creeds, colors, everything, the whole lot. It's
absolutely.
It all becomes so much easier. So yeah, come back to the point of highly skilled. It is the greatest skill you could ever teach yourself, how to work with and deal with people.
Yes.
And ultimately, all the growth of your life happens on the back of your errors. So just as the guy says, double your error rate.
Yep.
And you'll be right, as long as you're surrounded by a leader who accepts that.
I mean, it should always be a learning. If things go, actually, not just when things go wrong, we also should learn more from when things go right. But actually reflecting and okay, what did I do? What was the outcome? Would I do that again? I think is absolutely critical in everything we do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's wonderful. Now, we when we first had a chat about this, you have a little project in the offing
I do.
at the moment.
I do.
And I think finally we can actually talk about it.
Yes, we can. So as part of Master Inholders, I guess if you'll humor me to do a little bit of scene setting.
Absolutely.
If you remember sort of November time last year, there was the whole push for a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And I was asked if I would support it and do a little video snippet. And in trying to find something original to say, because let's face it, there'd been a lot more pretty awesome people doing their videos before they asked me. And I was thinking, oh, okay, let's find something to say. I did a bit of research and a few facts kind of hit me. At the same time, there was some anecdotal evidence. And what hit me was, as an industry, hospitality held 10% of all of the jobs pre-COVID.
Right.
By November, the Office for National Statistics was saying that a third or thereabouts of all redundancies were coming from our industry. And in the whole, if you were under 30, in fact, if I recall correctly, it was under 26, but let's just go with under 30.
Yeah.
More than half of people made redundant were under 30. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, because that's all of our future talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was that, and then we were hearing stories, because master inn holders, one of the main reasons master inn holders exist is to make sure that we are improving the standards of the industry and developing talent for the future. And I really believe that the only reason I'm here is because a lot of really awesome people saw some talent or some potential or something in a little scruffy no-hoper, and helped me get to where I am.
Who likes tea in a nice
in a
nice
posh
cup.
cup. Bone china all the way.
Yeah. Ultimately, that's what got you the jobs. I'm sure of it. Yeah.
But
it's a damn good point, though, around nobody can get anywhere without somebody seeing something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Correct. And
that's an inevitable part of somebody's evolution, I think, as a human.
Absolutely. But I also think it is our responsibility to pay that forward or back, whichever way, back for us, forward for somebody else. But we need to make sure that happens for the next generation. So master inn holders do a lot of really cool things. I was lucky enough many years ago to get a scholarship to go to Cornell University, through the master inn holders and the Worshipful Company of Inn Holders and the Civil Educational Trust. They sponsored that, but they still do, and that changed my career. And so there's the scholarships. There's also the master inn holders mild program, which is aimed at a slightly more junior level, but helps develop leaders of the future. And because of COVID, we weren't able to do those things. Everything just got put on pause. And then we were hearing these anecdotal stories of people that had been on mild, for example, people that were interested in hotels, had great potential, we saw as our future leaders, had been made redundant, because let's face it, we had to make people redundant. Although I have to say, if we knew then what we know now, we might not have. But anyway, skip past that for the minute. We'd made them redundant, and they were going off to other industries, and we're like, we've got to find a way to get them back at some point. And so we had this bit of a conversation with David Morgan Hewitt, who's chair of master inn holders, and a few other people, about the dilemma that our industry was going to face if we lost our talent. And so MIDAS was born, master inn holders developing additional skills. And we had this half a harebrained plan, because really it was only half a harebrained plan in the beginning, about making a vehicle where people could network and learn things and keep connected and engaged with our industry, no matter where they were, at whatever hotel, anywhere up and down the country. We really didn't care. We just wanted to try and reach these people and keep them involved. And but you needed someone who is a bit more smart than I am. So we approached Dr. Hilary Cook and said, Hilary,
being humble again.
No. Trust me, that one's not humble. That one's absolutely reality. And said, Hilary, help us. And Hilary, being the amazing woman she did, she absolutely did. We managed to get some seed money to kind of build a website and get some kit together, and everybody, the goodwill that came out of creating MIDAS was incredible. Everybody gave their time for free, just to make it come together. And we did 6 modules focused with different webinars and masterclasses and podcasts and all sorts of things on different subjects for 6 months. And originally it had just been kind of a 6-month plan. And then we'd probably all get back to our normal day jobs and everything would be fine. Clearly that hasn't quite turned out that way. And we found that actually there's a real need and a real desire for people to still be connected and to still learn things. And in the early days, we thought we'd get about 30 people turn up, and we thought if we got 30 people, we'd be fine. And David challenged us to kind of get to 50. Shall we just say the numbers way, way, way exceeded that? In fact, we beat those numbers on our very first
57.
module. No, the first one we had like over 100 people sign up for the masterclass, and we were like, we actually don't know how to accommodate 100 people on
Wow.
masterclass.
Yeah.
So we learned some things as we went along, but yeah, overall, honestly, couldn't be more proud of the team that all got together. And Chris Todd needs an absolute special mention, because honestly, he's the guy that makes it happen. And yeah, so we ran that program, and then we took a bit of a time out in the summer to kind of reflect, and did we need to carry on? Was there a need? Should we carry on? And if we did, what did it look like? And we asked the people that had attended MIDAS in some shape or form, and overwhelmingly they came back and said yes. So we are doing it again.
Right.
Slightly differently, because in the early days when we launched in lockdown, we found that the live masterclasses I think the average attendance was 82. But once, and that's of the whole period, we had significantly more people on the live masterclasses in the beginning. And then as industry opened up and hotels started to get busy in the countryside and on the coast, it switched to people wanting recorded stuff.
Yep.
So we've tweaked things around a bit, but I'm delighted to say that we are starting MIDAS again on the 2nd of November. And in response to because we're doing it for other people, and what they tell us they want, probably the number one request was stuff to help career development and mentoring.
Yeah.
So our first 3 pieces, if you like, the first theme will be on mentoring and career development, and how to really use mentoring to just turbocharge your career, I guess. So the November the 2nd will be a webinar and a panel discussion on what actually makes successful mentoring. And then we'll follow it up with how to get the best out of that relationship. Because I think it's always one of those odd things. I always say this, that I was lucky enough to have Philip Newman Hall as a mentor. If I'm honest, I still call him now, regardless of whether he's officially or unofficially a mentor.
Yeah. That's kind of what happens, though, isn't it, with good mentor-mentee relationships?
Exactly. But I also remember being absolutely terrified the first time I met him.
Yeah.
He was the MD of Le Manoir. Oh my goodness, have you seen that hotel? How cool is that? And and it's quite daunting and intimidating, but you own the relationship as the mentee. And how brave are you sometimes to pick up the phone or to engage, and how do you get the best out of that relationship? So we're going to do some real nuts and bolts on how to make it work, because there's also a lot of mentoring that doesn't particularly work, and we want to make sure that these guys get the best out of it. And then we'll on that's the 22nd of November, and then the 7th of December we will finish the theme with a podcast with some real live examples of some people that have gone through it and what it has done for them.
Yep.
So, and then we'll work on well, we figured no one wants to talk to us after December anyway, and we did the podcast last so that people can just download it and listen to it whenever they want.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably start again late January. But yeah, it's really exciting, and like I say, really, I'm so blessed to be surrounded by a group of people that really want to do something positive for our future talent.
Yeah, it's such a critical thing right now. I mean, it's not even, I suppose, just about it being a right now thing. It's just about doing the right thing, for the future of the industry. And the statistics you gave me at the head of that little piece there is quite it is alarming.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Yeah.
And then and then it's on the back of that, it's about it's people like you that then have, and I know that you're absolutely team focused all the way, that you're providing a working place for these people to come into that they want to be in, and that's another piece of the jigsaw, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's no point spending all this time trying to train and develop and and then yeah. I mean, there are some unfortunately some shocking hotels out there. So I think the stuff Sally Beck's doing on the Hoteliers Charter is just absolutely so important to us right now. That
Yeah.
if yeah, if you going back to Jonathan Raggett's thing about talent goes where talent wants, if you are a bright young thing and want to aspire to be a GM or a director of revenue or marketing or whatever it is, you want to put your career in the hands of somebody who's going to look after it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I think the Hoteliers Charter is yeah, we needed it before, but I think we need it even more now. I think it's an amazing initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's it's and I suppose at the end of the day, it's more positives coming on the back of COVID.
Yep.
Things that we probably already needed that maybe we just didn't think or feel like we had the time to put together beforehand. Now, in the moment of need, think little initiative, little, they're hardly little, big initiatives like this are coming together, at exactly the right time. And if this is the thing, right? I mean, if it takes a big shift or a big event to shift mentalities a little bit, then that's fine. That's great. At least it's happening. And there's been so much. I feel like in hospitality's moment of need right now, there has never been a more coming together of people that work in the industry. There's this kind of I'm going to use a very overused word, but this kind of sense of co-opetition now.
Yep.
It's not around, oh, well, I'm sure there's probably an element of this still goes on. Well, they're getting 450 quid, so we have to put our rate up to 467 or whatever. I'm sure that still goes on, but it's not, that's just, that's the financial part of competitiveness. But the rest of it is around how do we work together to make this industry the best bloody industry to come in and work. And I take my hat off to you guys and to Sally Beck. And Sally and I are going to have a chat in the new year as well. So I look forward to that. We absolutely need people like you to do the things that you're doing for the greater good.
It goes back to that long termism. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
yeah. The good old Stephen Covey 7 habits of highly effective people begin with the end in mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the end has to be a better industry. And and I'm happy to say it. We haven't always paid well enough, and I'm quite delighted that some of the rates are going up. And I think there is some of the madness out there that you were talking about, and I think things will settle. But I also think we need to do a much better job about shouting about the good that there is, because our challenge is that there's absolute poles apart, and let's face it, the headline is much great, or it's going to be read a whole lot more if it says chef bullied in the kitchen than chef had a great day in the kitchen and learned a whole lot.
Yeah, for the 364 other days of their career, across that year, they had a wonderful experience, and then that one moment will be the thing that gets the press.
Yeah, and but those things do happen, and we need to, as an industry, get better at going back to that, raising the standards and almost calling out the guys that aren't living up to that expectation. There's that great book about is it making the boat go faster? And if there's somebody who's actively drilling holes in our boat, let's launch them out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cracker, actually. Yeah, I totally agree. It does feel a little bit like it's hospitality's Me Too moment here. We should have an amnesty on this. Let's air the dirty laundry now in one big hit, and then draw a line collectively and say, right, going forward, this is totally unacceptable. We do accept that people will make mistakes along the way, but be prepared to get educated. And get educated fast about any malpractice practice that comes along these lines, because it's just it kind of amazes me that in 2021 we're still having to talk about this stuff. This is basic human behavior, we're talking about.
It's actually wrong, like the whole trunk conversation.
Yeah,
Every single penny of our service charge and our grats goes to our team. We don't charge them for the credit cards. We don't even charge them for the trunk master. We pay that because
yeah,
that's the right thing to do.
yeah,
And I sorry, I do get quite animated and angry that people believe that they have a right to take away from the guys that actually earns it. And let's face it, are probably earning less than the guys that are taking a share.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You just got to do the right thing.
Yeah, and totally don't ever apologize for having positive passion. For sure. That I completely agree with you. It's just this is the second time I'm going to use this phrase today. I was speaking to somebody else about this morning. One of my favorite pieces of philosophy comes from, I can't believe I'm going to say this in public, comes from Albus Dumbledore in Harry Potter.
Oh, come on, Albus Dumbledore is a legend. Do not apologize for Harry Potter.
Is that soon we all have to choose between what is right and what is easy. And that to me is, I just think, an absolutely wonderful pillar for life.
Yes.
Making the right calls is sometimes a really, really difficult thing to do, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes down to things like this, it's just that thing there about trunk and service charge comes down to pure and simply respect. If you respect the people who are doing it, then you're going to do the right thing. If there's no respect there, then that's when things start getting awry and starting going all over the place. And who would want to work for someone where you don't feel respected?
Yeah, completely. It's back for me. It's about integrity. Yeah, integrity is what you do when nobody is looking.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and if you can look yourself in the face every morning and say, I may not have got it right, but I really, really tried to do the right thing, then I'm good with that.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. And we need a lot more of it as well. We need people just to have the confidence to come out with it, and let's get all the good people together. Let's solve the problems together, because there's enough of us around there for sure that and there's definitely enough passion for this. So I'm right behind anything that anybody does positively. I think we collectively can make a massive difference.
I hope so. We really do need it. I think not just hospitality, but the whole world. I do believe we are living through our own industrial revolution, whatever it lands the history books land up calling this.
Yeah, the human revolution.
Yeah, whatever it lands up being, we are living through the most monumental change, in centuries. And I hope the little naive unicorn in me hopes that the world is actually a better place for it, and it really feels like it's happening. Whether it's sustainability or human rights, or I don't know, there just does seem to be a greater movement towards doing the greater good.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's nothing but a good thing. God, there's a few high horses getting jumped on here today, isn't there?
I should have brought my stepladder.
Yeah. Historically, I'm just used to jumping on little ponies, but but no, there's some bigger Clydesdale horses getting brought into the equation. But no, it's important that we have these discussions, I think, and one of the reasons I started this podcast in the first place was to shout about the good stuff that happens in this industry, and really just do that through the people, because there's no better things that happen in this industry than that are everything good that happens through the people that work here. And so that's me just doing my little bit, and I'm hoping that takes me down into different paths to do other things, because as somebody who works on the fringes of the industry, in inverted commas, I see a lot of different people and a lot of different companies, and I do. It probably took me getting the wrong side of 40 to really kind of realize that I fundamentally can have a voice here, and very much want to.
I think that just comes with experience and a confidence that you only get through age. I think it takes us our 20s and most of our 30s and some of us even longer than that to get comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And once you are, then you really can affect change.
Yeah, absolutely. My God, we're solving problems today, aren't we?
I hope they're still solved tomorrow, yeah?
Yeah.
Nobody better
Yeah,
break them overnight.
no, I'm gonna take a day off tomorrow. No, that's cool. Do you know, one of the big things that I think we absolutely need to shout about more is how much fun we have in this industry as well. I think that's really underplayed. You know, yes, there are moments of pressure. Yes, there are moments where you question your life choices, but that's the same in any industry you choose to go work in. The differential for me is that this is an industry of relentless fun.
Yes, and everyone talks about the unsociable hours, but oh my goodness, we have social in our hours, all of
Yeah,
them. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I was talking to somebody about this yesterday around the fact that the people you meet and work with, when you're in the right environment, you are friends with these people for life, and you can have 30 years where you don't talk to each other, but as soon as you walk into the same room with these people again, you're back 30 years ago to all the stuff that you used to get up to, you know. And I just think the bonds that this industry provides are second to none.
I also think that I don't think we appreciate that enough in relation to some of those other, we started talking about, education almost encourages you to become, I don't know, a doctor, lawyer, and accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have friends that are doctors, lawyers, accountants, and apart from the fact that we always want to speak to the doctor about a friend who has an issue and how do you, how do you resolve this thing? But
Yeah.
once you've got past how do I fix my ingrown toenail or whatever it is? Nobody actually really, and I know this sounds awful and I really don't mean it to be disrespectful, but nobody wants to talk to the accountant about how they balance the books. Nobody wants, sometimes if the lawyer's got some interesting thing, then maybe. But every time we get together, everybody wants to know about, who's been in the hotel and, what happened now? Because our, we really do have fun and we get a million stories of, funny things that happen. And we need to be discreet about, the guests we have stay and everything else. But, you can anonymize some of the hilarity that happens. And every day is different. And every day there's a moment where you laugh out loud.
Yeah, totally. And I that leads me nicely on actually to asking you if, because I do like to ask this question, are there any stories that you can share with us of fun times apart from every day?
Apart from every day, putting me on the spot. Let me give that some because there's a million. It's just finding one that isn't
Going through the
either.
Rolodex in your
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, exactly. Isn't too embarrassing or too awkward or let's not go for a funny story. But I'm a child of a certain age, as we've already discovered, and one of the absolutely coolest things about my hotel that I just cannot get enough of telling the story is that Steven Spielberg used to stay here a lot in the days that he was directing more, and he
That's a great setup for a story, by the way. Just
yeah.
dropping that name in straight away.
So he likes to work late, and so he used to take two of our apartments because the apartments can interconnect. Yeah. And he set up an editing suite in one of the apartments. So E.T. was edited in this hotel. Is that not the coolest thing to be able to tell your mates?
Really?
Yeah.
That is cool. That's cool, and that speaks to the that creating experiences through history as well, like in terms of what went down in this hotel.
Correct. And I think E.T. is long enough ago that I can get away with telling that story. But I think it is such a cool story. I mean, there's been many others going back just because whilst we're talking history, over the road from the hotel is Down Street Station. It's a disused station. They built it in the days where actually you could drive around Mayfair. So it got disused quite quickly. And during the Second World War, they used to evacuate Churchill from Downing Street to Down Street Station. And the story goes, I'm sure it's been embellished over the years, but
that never happens.
No, never, not at all, not once. The story goes that he would sit in our bar because he didn't like going into Down Street. He called it cold and dark and damp.
Right.
And he would sit in our bar drinking champagne. That's probably the bit that's been embellished, and smoking his cigar, which I totally believe.
Yeah.
Until he could hear the planes, not until the sirens went off, but until he could hear the planes. And then he would walk over the road and down into Down Street. And I love that story too. I think that's also cool as.
Yeah, totally. And I'm just going to go with it that it's completely 100% true.
Well, whether the champagne was true or not, he might have been drinking whiskey, because actually he actually liked whiskey more if you read the history books. But whatever he was drinking, I really don't care. If it was water, I'd be happy.
I think he's quite an adaptable drinker.
I think he was an adaptable drinker.
But I also love the idea that he might have just, he's got this philosophy in his brain going, well, if it's my time, it's my time.
I think he was also, I'm going to say stubborn, determined that, no, I'm not being cowed. I will stand up and I'll be sensible, but I'm not being any more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's brilliant. You came up trumps with the stories. That works for me. I am eminently conscious that you've been very gracious with your time, so I am going to wrap this up shortly. You'll be glad to hear. I thought I was going to have to at one point put, if you ever watch Top Gear and they do this long piece and they do a fade out and it says sometime later, and then we fade back in. But no, I've enjoyed every minute of our chat, and I think you're definitely one of the shining stars of this industry, and it's great that you're putting yourself front and center, really, in terms of getting at the table to make things better. And if more people would do that, then we'd quickly recover any ground lost through COVID. So that's my rally cry to anybody, is to take some inspiration from the work that you're doing.
No, thank you. That's very kind, because there's definitely space for lots of people to just do a little bit more. And together we absolutely can make a difference. Yeah.
Brilliant. If people would like to get a hold with you to learn more about what you're doing, or learn more about your property, or just chew the fat with you, what's the best method for them to do that?
Probably LinkedIn is always a great one. It's always accessible whenever for most people. Yeah. Or otherwise through the hotel. But LinkedIn, you'll get me directly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Joanne. I've thoroughly enjoyed that, and I wish you all the very best for the next phase into Christmas and beyond. And we'll catch up soon, I have no doubt.
Indeed. Next time you're in London, I'll go and I'll show you Down Street in that pretty cool apartment, and you can visualize watching ET.
If there's champagne and cigars involved, then I'm cool with the champagne, but not the cigars.
Okay, that's fine. But let's face it, we are hoteliers. We do know how to eat and drink well. It's part of the perks of being in the industry. So
absolutely.
For sure.
Fantastic. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And there we have it. What a wonderful journey so far, and I'm so grateful that hospitality has people like Joanne. If we unite all the people who make a positive difference, we really can fight back against the negative tide. A huge thank you to Joanne for her time. We'll be back next Wednesday with more stories from hospitality, but until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.